We are back. We have writer-director Jack C. Newell with us. There he is. We also have two incredible cast members from the film, Javier Munoz and Marguerite Moreau, who are here to tell us a little bit about the experience of making the film. But I'll start right away, Jack, with you. You wrote and directed this film. What was the inspiration? Where did this story come from?
Well, it came from a lot of different places. I think that the core of it was, we're going to start off on a real down note here. I mean, if people just watch the movie, right? So like, it's a movie about people dealing with loss and grief. And I had unfortunately had some loss that I suffered when I was into high school, early college, with the passing of my brother and my mother. And it just was, as you can imagine, incredibly difficult. And that's not something you ever get over, but it's something that you learn how to process. And so I guess I'm not out of high school. It's been a number of years since then. And I had gotten married in the meantime. And my wife's mother is a writer. And she was like, "Oh, I wrote this short story." And I was like, "Let me read it." And it was a story about a guy whose wife passes away. And he wants to scatter her ashes in the place that they were the happiest. And it was at a museum. And I read it and it just resonated with me. And so I started developing it. I was like, "Hey, can I option this from my mom?" Which is always weird when you option something from your mother or mother-in-law, excuse me.
She'll appreciate that you said that.
Agents weren't involved. It was okay. It was very, But I started developing and trying to find a way to take my experiences and turn it into a film that I would want to make, a film that I would want to see. And I think then what has been sort of interesting is at the time we weren't intentionally trying to make something that was timely. I think we were trying to make a film that sort of spoke a little bit more timeless, not like it's a timeless movie. I'm not like that much of an egomaniac, but something that was a little less connected to time of the right now, and make just a story that sort of everyone who has dealt with loss, which we all have. And sometimes it's very intense, but sometimes it can just be small. It can be, I've had people watch the film and they've been like, "Yeah, I broke up with my girlfriend, and this movie really spoke to me because I grieved that loss." The weird thing though is that given what's happened and like the sort of what's happened in our country right now over the last, let's just say this year, we've oddly made a film that's incredibly apt for the times, because now we're all dealing with this collective trauma. We're all dealing with this loss. And so in a weird way, we've sort of made a film that is actually perfect for the now, unfortunately, for all of us. Which is, a story about how to come to terms with saying goodbye, moving on, honoring those that you love.
You're a documentary filmmaker as well. So I think the next film should be the documentary of you optioning this film from your mother-in-law. That sounds like a compelling.
It's going to be a 10-part HBO miniseries.
I love your vision. I was like thinking a short right in front of the movie.
No, it's a full epic.
So sorry.
So Javier, Marguerite, I'd love to know how you got connected to the film, attached to the film. This film shot in Colorado, which we're going to get to, which I know for some actors is a draw, but I'd love to know what drew you to this project.
Go ahead, Marguerite.
Well, also with Jack, I also had some loss recently before we shot the movie, and it seemed like as a new mom, an opportunity to go and like process that by myself. And so that really attracted me, but also what Jack was trying to do with the structure of the film and the ways he was using the camera, the heightened nature of the comedy, and sort of like, I always call it a tragic comedy about death. And I thought that as like these morbid feelings, like I would make these jokes after my dad passed that like some people would look at me, but I was like, oh, you just have to be having this experience to be able to make these jokes. It really felt healthy to be laughing while it was like a safe place to feel those bigger feelings. So I really appreciated the movie for inviting people into something that we don't talk about a lot, which is, that everybody dies and we're all going to die. And that's a downer in a way that it's so universal. It's helpful to be on an adventure like this film is and make it magical. Death is magical as well as sad and all these other things. So it just suited me. Plus, I told you I wanted to go to Colorado because I just read The Stand, and Boulder was the free city. And I was like, I must see Boulder. And then they have these amazing tacos there, if you don't know.
Oh, God, the tacos.
They're like Indian tacos. if you go to Boulder, you got to get them. They're by the college. That's my tip.
Javier, what drew you to this project?
So I got the script, I think, late in the process of casting, and I fell in love with the script right away. And so I already knew Marguerite was attached and David was attached, and that was enticing to get to work with both of them. But I fell in love with the story, and I fell in love with the journey of mourning. And Jack and I hopped on a call just to talk through what this is and who Howl is. And while my heart resonated with the processing of loss in the story, I love getting to play characters like Howl, these strange, bizarre, odd people who journey from their anger and whatever they're feeling to some sort of resolution and peace. I love that. I love being able to slip into that imperfect skin of just being in a bubble of what you feel, and there's nothing else but what you feel and what Howl feels, and justifying it right each time. Every scene, who is he going to ignite, and how and why? And he's a big goofball. So I just loved. I fell in love with the character immediately after just falling in love with the story. And I also, this is a side note, I don't have a license. I've had 2 driving lessons in my life.
He's from New York, baby.
Was one of those driving lessons on our film set when we were trying to get you to?
Yeah, as you're driving down the road in the truck.
Oh my God, white knuckle, But like it also was. There's always something about my yes to a project that some little thing that's like, oh, I've never done that before. So I was just like, I get to drive a truck. I want to do that.
Yeah.
Coming in on
brings
that
you to the art,
Yeah.
Oh, I wanted to play a dead person for sure. That wasn't covered in like ghoul makeup.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's weird, like when you write something if you write and direct a film, it's already sort of a unique experience because you take something that you wrote and it just plays in your imagination, and you then start to communicate it out to your team members and other people. But then when you actually have to cast someone and then like make the movie, it's a wild experience. It's beautiful. It's amazing. It's wonderful. It's like incredibly, blessed to be able to do that. But I didn't really realize, like, I wrote a character whose name is Howl.
Yeah.
And like how weird that was. Because I just was like, oh, this is what I want to do, just like typing them on the computer. And like, I wrote a character named Howl, and then to actually bring that person to life. I mean, I think this is writ large for all the performances, and Marguerite and David are unbelievable in the film, as is Javier. But like to write someone named Howl and for that character to work is like, I think I now know, oh my God, that could have gone so bad. Like if Javier hadn't been in that role, that could have been a nightmare. It could have been the sore thumb that sticks out in the movie where it's just like, oh God, what's happening? But like you did such a wonderful job with it, Javier. It's such a weird, hard thing. And yeah, Howl is like pure emotion. He's just like, there's a reading of the movie that like Howl is David's, alter ego, or like the flip side of what was going on with David. And you played that so well. That's a complete tangent. So
David is Ted.
David's Ted. I'm sorry, David's Ted, who's I think in Aspen right now shooting another film. Did you guys see that?
Yeah, he's in like Crested Butte, which is not Aspen,
okay,
and very cold. And close.
Although the people in Crested Butte would probably be very mad at me for saying it's anything
Exactly.
like or close to Aspen.
Exactly.
How dare you, sir? Well, I think that segues beautifully. Thank you, Marguerite. Into the idea that this film was, we get some film production in Colorado. It's certainly not dominant here, but sometimes you almost don't know. A film comes along and you go, oh, that was shot here. I didn't even know. This film, Colorado, is a character in the film. And I think that that's such a lovely way to see the state. And I know that shooting this in Colorado was important to you. How did that come? Was that immediately in the writing? Was the location discovered later? I mean, how did this sort of Colorado connection come to be?
So I wrote the script and it was written for Colorado. And then when I started meeting with Angie, who's our producer on the project, she's from Boulder. And so when we talked, she was like, "Oh, this is interesting," and so we always wanted it to be in Colorado. I mean, it's a journey film. If people have just watched the film, it's a road trip movie, and so we knew we sort of wanted to end in Chicago, and so it needs to start somewhere. I mean, that's inherent. But I liked the idea of how, as a person who's from Chicago, like it's a plains state. Like there's basically, mountains are they're just geographically so different, and the world is so different. And so the idea of setting this in Colorado, I sort of liked. I liked the imagery of like mountains in one end of the film, and then like city skyscraper like sort of vistas of cities in the other end of the movie, and then a valley in between of just the plains. Like just visually, I liked. Ted is a guy who's sort of lost at the beginning of the movie and sort of like in the wilderness, quote unquote. And so we'd always sort of thought about that when we were thinking about it.
We have a visitor. I'm so sorry, my love. This is Casper.
Hey.
I'll be done in a few seconds and you can have your room back, okay? Thanks, little love.
The best part about Zoom Q&As that would never happen in a theater.
In a real
I
Q&A.
don't think.
Maybe.
I wanted to mirror the shock and awe that Ted has in the movie. Yes.
And I think, we liked no, it's fine. I think, and then I think, big city sort of feel at the end of the movie where Ted's out of place. Like, how do we put him in a spot? So small town and sort of like the laid back sort of Boulder sort of mountain vibe. I feel like mountain towns and seaside towns have that sort of laid back sort of vibe that everyone's just sort of on their own speed. That felt right for where Ted was at the beginning of the film, where he's, sort of stuck and just like coasting.
And what was it like? I'll ask this of all three of you. What was it like shooting in Colorado? What were the highlights? Were there lowlights? What was the experience like?
Beautiful. It was so beautiful. I mean, I burned out my camera taking photos of sunrises and sunsets and, just the views. I mean, it was so invigorating to be creating in that kind of environment. There was one day where we were starting just before sunrise in the house that they lived, and the sun started coming up, and literally everyone, the whole crew, everybody stopped, went out to the balcony and just stood in silence watching the sunrise collectively. That sums it up. I mean, it was beautiful to be there the entire time.
Yeah, one of the benefits I think of working on independent films is there's this spirit between everyone that they're doing something that they care about and they believe in a little bit, maybe more than a bigger project, because you have to sacrifice something, you have to choose to do it. And I think one of the benefits of it is you get oftentimes to go to places like this. And I say this because there was this, we shot in Chicago first, which was its own adventure, but then we became a camp. Like, we already bonded, but, everybody went home at night, but, everybody stayed in these awesome places, and, you could bike into town. And so you got to like be on the ground there, which is like in Chicago, like you were in a car, you were on a freeway, you were on a bus, you were on a highway, like you met at the church that was renting out the parking. Here, you just kind of, I think one day I had a shot at 6 a.m. at the college, and then they were like, "I'm so sorry, we're not going to need you till 3." And I was like, just walked straight across all the lawns to town, went shopping, had a smoothie, like things I don't get to do now because I have a child. I think that the combination of what you can get from a town to add to the quality of the film, not only for your personal experiences, but like how you work as a crew, is very special. It was lovely. I mean, watching David have to jump in the river while Javier and I sat on the side of a hill with like straw in our mouth and like our boots up, just chatting. Like, look, there's a cow. I think we like sat there for like an hour and a half, and they're like, "Do you guys want to go down to the cars?" We're like,
Nope.
No. This is beautiful.
So yeah, you just get so much more, I think, character-wise too, just by having these special locations.
Right.
Yeah, it's like this was an ambitious film for the budget. It's probably just an ambitious film, period. And then add on top of it, like the budget size that it is that made it independent. And the fact that we filmed, like in Chicago, we weren't at the longest we were at any place was the Field Museum for 2 days in a row. Otherwise, we were just bouncing over everywhere, which Marguerite gave voice to. And like the best part about Colorado probably was we didn't have to do that anymore. We were just in one spot. This sort of goes
camp.
back. Yeah, a little camp. Yeah, that great spot. And this maybe goes back a little bit to your previous question, but whenever, for me, it's like a man versus nature sort of story as well. And so it's David's character, Ted, but all of them are really always interacting with nature. And whenever I think nature, I think mountains, and I think like mountain rivers and all that stuff. So if you've seen the film, it's clearly part of it. And I think that was the best part. I mean, you also asked was like, what was hard? It's like, film production is always challenging for a lot of reasons. But it was actually very smooth. The Colorado shoot was very smooth, I think. It was weird because the movie starts in Colorado and then it ends in Colorado, but we shot the middle of the movie first, which was actually wonderful. We sort of lucked into that because we were able to really learn characters and really know what we're doing. So by time, as Marguerite said, we shot Colorado last, we basically shot the beginning of the movie first. And then we shot, the last shot of the day is the last shot we ever did in the film on principle was them like saying goodbye to each other. Actually, technically, you guys are walking down. We did a couple of like just walking shots. But yeah, it was like the scene where they say goodbye on the river. So it was cathartic in the experience of shooting it, and it just was like levels of catharsis that just sort of built out. Where it was just like the shoot's ending. This is them saying goodbye. And so it was amazing. And yeah, being able to, shoot your scenes and do your work and then like turn around, there's like beautiful mountains and streams and wildlife. It's just like, this is great. I think if you really want to know, the worst thing that happened in shooting was during pickups. So we shot the film in November of 18. And then in May of 19, we shot about a week of pickups without any cast members. It was just me, Stephanie, the DP, and a couple of crew members. We did some movie magic stuff. So there's some scenes where very, very, very wide shots. That's not David, basically. I'll just tell you that. But we drove back cross country with that red truck, and we were 90 minutes outside of Boulder, and we threw a rod and the engine exploded on the truck. And we hadn't even started filming anything we needed to film. And so we ended up like pulling the truck into like a, like a auto repair place. And we filmed all the stuff we needed to with it not moving and like PAs and grips, like moving the truck like that. And then the last day of filming, I was like, if we towed this truck to the top of a hill, could we film it? And so we talked to the tow truck driver and like, how do you do that? Like, how do you charge? And he's like, I just charge every time I hook it up. And I was like, all right, how much is it per time you hook it up? He's like, this much. I was like, all right, we got two goes at this. So we towed it to the top of a hill, the truck to the top of a hill, set up a bunch of shots, and then basically I'd like release the brake and just the car would coast down. I'd slam on the brakes. Stephanie would reset the camera. We'd coast down and coast down. So there's a number of shots in the film that the truck is it's a gigantic paperweight at that point. So, and then we like in post-production, like swip the frame so it makes it look like it's going uphill. I mean, it's all this fun like stuff. But yeah, so yeah, that was the worst. But that's not Colorado's fault. That was our fault for blowing up the truck.
Well, everyone in the audience have to go back and try to find those segments now where Jack is driving a truck with no engine.
Exactly.
Well, I just want to say thank you guys so much for spending the time with us today. Thank you for the film. It's a phenomenal film. I want to let the audiences know that this film is eligible for the People's Choice Audience Award for Best Film in the Colorado Spotlight section. So you can vote right now and make your voice heard and help make Monuments the winner of that award. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for the time today.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks, Neil. This was great.
Yeah.